This is, I guess you could say it's a test of how good the microphone sounds on the KZSN Pros. I do have the Pro X's coming in, and it is a little windy outside, so unfortunately when I got my KB ears, I somehow neglected to get the microphone models, so those ones are more crispy, but so I've been trying to play catch up, and while pacing myself at reading the Bronze Age mindset, it's reading material to go along with a book club, and basically kind of the more recent stuff in it the more recent material that I read last night talked about like the bond of friendship, and it's really interesting the way he puts it, that he purports that we've basically emasculated the term of friendship, more particularly between men, and that the way we view it now, if we were to see that bond of friendship that we see in like the old stories, that we would purport that like, well, they have some other carnal feelings and that's what's going on, and when none of that has to be the case. And of course that's true. It's like you can have a deep and abiding friendship without any carnal alternate things going on between men that way, but you can have that deep binding friendship where you would die for someone, die for a brother in arms in essence, and go on adventures for them because of that deep-seated love for them, that deep-seated friendship and love. And we think of that, it's kind of weird today because no one is really, everybody's been conditioned that like that kind of thing doesn't happen all that often when it could. We just kind of turn away from it. And I do kind of like that notion that you could have a friendship that was so deep and strong that you would basically go to the ends of the earth to save your bro, basically. So that bromance is so strong that you would basically risk your life to go for it. It's interesting too because he keeps bringing up that it would be better to risk your life and die young and die with a beautiful body and form than it would be to die old and having accomplished a lot. You die in your peak and your body is this beautiful form at your peak and everything else. And you die in the memory having died in some epic quest and some risking your life for someone else. And I find that interesting because there are more ways than just that to, in essence, live on and be remembered in the minds of people for generations. Is that you could have had such an impact on the world and changed people that even though you die old and frail, die of old age rather than die in combat or die trying to save your friend at a young age, you ended up living your life to the fullest and dying in service of your people. And I think somewhat, so far from what I've read, it just feels like he kind of overlooks that aspect or kind of turns away from it, because at the peak of it all, it's like you die in this beautiful form, and at the same time, when we look at many statues depicting these people that did these great things, they died basically of old age, but then their statues depict them as younger a lot of times. And I think sometimes that's what we neglect, is that, and I think he's forgetting somewhat, is that you can die young and you can be remembered for that. But at the same time, there's so much that you're missing out on in being able to do after that. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't risk your life, but at the same time, there are a lot of people that end up living on, and it's like, well, he could have, because what was it? I think there was a portion where he's like, yes, he could have like done the exact same thing and lived on, but it just wouldn't have been as good because he would have left behind an old frail figure instead of like this beautiful macho figure. And it's like, but at the same time, he lived on to do more great acts and things for his people and for those in the world around him. And he could have been glorified in that sense, but now he has to live with, well, he does, if he dies young, he doesn't have any more that he can do. He leaves behind family and friends to try and continue that legacy on that he abruptly left. And how much time did he have to teach and pass on what he believed onto younger generations? And somewhat, when you die young and you haven't been able to raise up your children to all that old, you do lack that, is the ability to raise up other generations after yourself so that they can further the legacy. And that could live on for longer than you if you were around for just a little bit longer. Whereas in something like this, where you go and die for your friends, not that it isn't noble, at the same time, have you been able to instill that loyalty into other people? It's just a sod paradox where I agree and disagree with it. It's just like, it's almost like reading something, well, it is reading something that I half agree with, and other parts I half disagree with, but it kind of makes sense, the thinking he's going for, whereas other things that I am in the middle of or have read have been like, what? And I don't agree with it all, and their rationality really doesn't make sense, or maybe they've got 2 or 3 good things in here, and that's about it. And that's the tough part, is there's a lot in here in Bronze Age mindset that does make sense, and we've forgotten a lot of that. And it's not necessarily saying that we shouldn't innovate, but it's more of a mindset of, I guess, where our loyalties lie so far. There, early on, he doesn't have a lot of actionable things. According to other people, that's later on, and I'm getting there. But all this groundwork is leading up to that point. What's the actionable portions that he's talking about? Bringing up issues with society and the way society runs, and bringing up problems with the way things are currently. All them girls, all they know is charge day, iPhone, and blah, blah, blah. You get the copy pasta. But in many ways, it's true. It's like, live in the pod. And he talks about an overarching theme is that natural desire that particularly men have of conquest. And how it's natural for us to want to go adventuring and go and conquer some new cool thing. But society has tried to domesticate men to not do that kind of a thing. And to some extent it's worked, but you can see where it is getting released into unhealthy places where they could be achieving so much, and yet here we are emasculating men that would break out and do something else and possibly do something great that would help society, but now we have to sit down, shut up, read the book, and don't think about anything else. Go get a job, work for the rest of your life, be miserable because you need the money and you're in debt, and then maybe we'll release you at retirement, but more than likely you're still going to have a mortgage and your student loan. But that's okay, because that's normal, and that's what everybody's doing. When in reality, not everyone's doing that. And there are people out there that are living their life differently, and they don't see that. It's just kind of sad. He lays out that whole societal thing and how we need to be able to break out and actually appease that nature of going on an adventure, in essence. And this isn't the first thing that I've read that has brought up the whole adventure thing. And it makes sense. Like, men, I'm sorry, we're naturally inclined to want to go adventuring. There's an inkling like, yeah, we can sit in a deep, dark basement for a little bit, but deep down, when you look at the types of things that you do, the kinds of video games that men tend to play, it leans into that aspect of being the hero, going on an adventure, saving the damsel in distress, and that kind of a thing. Those stereotypes are natural, and they're there for a reason, because that's where we naturally lean toward. And Bronze Age mindset leans into that a lot, is that adventure, that will to, that and drive to go and help your greatest friend without any need for carnal pleasure. And sometimes when you are in those trenches of going out and giving into that nature, you do forget about the sex and everything else. And he talks about how the idleness of men and not being able to do that has led to things like porn addiction and other things that way. How scientific that is a whole other story, but in many ways it does make sense. You're trying to release pressure and release this urge to go and do something more into something that's worthless. Because that's what ends up happening, is you go to this, you see it, and you're satisfied for a little bit, and then you have to go and do it some more, whereas you could have lived it up otherwise and done more. And you look at the midlife crisis situation where many men end up like at a certain age, like having a midlife crisis. It's like, I don't feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, blah, blah, blah. I think we've seen it on the TV before, more particularly like, I think it was a common theme in the late 90s, early 2000s, if I recall correctly, that was a thing on TV shows. I'm not sure how much they show that today, but that's just a difference in where nature has aligned and where the person is. And so they are at this crisis where they really don't know who they are, and they haven't been able to figure that out, and so they're having a crisis about it, and they haven't been able to dig into that natural side of them to want to go and do that, which could be very constructive. But yeah. One could be doing more, but that chance isn't there because of societal conditioning. And now, even more so, since so many people want to condition men down into, in essence, beasts, like Bronze is put forth in the book. You kind of domesticate them into mere cattle, and then hopefully they do what you want, and then you beat or slaughter the ones that try and break out of it. But yeah, just one of many rants that I had to get off my, thoughts I had to get off my chesticles. And yeah, comment, do that kind of a thing. You know the drill for that. Links and stuff will be there. Discord, scream at me about it, and I will see you in another one.